Welcome everybody, I am Ed Cruz and this is the last lesson. And this is episode probably 18, I think. 18, and we're gonna focus on why that, what is this, the wrist. We're gonna see wrist, I'm not sure what I'm gonna call this. Wrist, elbow, why the elbow matters, why the wrist is sucking, I don't know. I'll eventually label it somehow. But I really want to stress upon when you're doing and learning the punch motion, we know that elbow leads the motion, something I said thousands of times, but let's look a little more in detail why that function is so necessary. There is elbow pushing the motion and the hand grabbing the motion. So one differs from the other, and to show exactly why it's so significant that you understand that simple lesson as far as elbow leads the motion, I have a demonstration here. Is a rolling pin, right? Rolling pin. So imagine for a second that this is the elbow, right? This is the elbow. And I've always said that the S4s, right? Stretch, sink, straighten, and shoot, right? We were talking about the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and then the index and thumb basically shooting towards it. So if you can imagine this part, this lower part is the elbow, and this part here rolling is the wrist, and this part is the hand shooting towards the thing. Now, you may be saying, why is that wrist so freaking big? Well, probably. No, the reason the wrist is so big is I want to show the emphasis, while I'm talking about the importance of the elbow, I want to tell you what happens with the function of the wrist, right? So I always said that the elbow, the function of the elbow, not only controls the path of it, but also at the very end stabilizes that motion in itself. And if you don't follow the functions of the S4 as far as stretch, sink, straighten, and shoot, you won't get the hand or the arm in itself to properly react when the force hits upon it. So in general, just to give you an idea, when the force hits your hand, and your hand, yes, your stance could suck and so forth, and that could lead to other problems, but let's assume for a second that that factor or that X factor is not into play, the legs and the feet, we're assuming you have a good stance. And then now we're just talking about the hands. But let's assume that force comes in and the hands don't function the way it should be. When that force hits you or hits the arm, instead of bouncing and reflecting it back, that actually ends up pinning and making it more difficult for you to move your hands. Okay? That's just the reality of it. So if you look at this from this, imagine this end to be the elbow. Notice the elbow controls it. See how I'm going like this? By having the elbow controls the motion and also the stability, right? At the end, when this hits, this has to be boom, hits and it's stable. If this hits and this is not, this will flick over to the side. Now the point I'm saying is if you hold, when I do my motion, right? When I do my motion, let's say a jump style motion, imagine these two motions as jump. If I don't end up releasing the power, right, all the way to, when I do the motion, you punch, you release the motion. When I do the jump, same concept involved, I'm releasing the motion. If I don't release the motion, the power stays in the arm. And more specifically, if you end up being touched at that particular point, guess what? Here is the elbow, right? Here is the force kicking in. But since I'm holding the power here and here, what happens when it hits it? Notice nothing. It basically, this doesn't have the rolling function, okay? So in other words, if I can do the motion correctly, elbow leads, wrist straighten to align it, and then basically index and thumb point to the target, imagine this, when the force touches it, never hits solid ground, because by the time it touches it, it rolls off automatically, one way or another, right? But if you do this and you're tight at the wrist, as soon as it hits it, notice it can't move because imagine I'm trying to roll, right? But I'm not controlling from this point and I'm this point, and now you don't have that rolling function of which you want the wrist to function as. Okay, so that's a common problem that most people have, and I want you to think about it and to see, right? I want you to see exactly. Wait. When the force touches, it's like almost like it should roll. It should rotate one way or another, go with the flow of the force. But if you feel your wrist just stay in place, or the point contact stay in place, that means You are not completing. It may go from A to B and stop at C, but it never gets to D. So that's the common mistake. If you're feeling it, it's like, oh, the weight feels heavy, the load is on me and so forth. That is a problem. You are not either releasing the power fully or you're holding it right, you're holding the power right at the wrist, and that's why you're having that issue, okay? Hopefully, that little explanation, that little example gives you an idea of how everything works. Because when I function, right, in Wing Chun, my hands function and I shoot towards a target. When that happens, what happens? If force comes in, which way? Notice my hand will roll. My hand doesn't collapse, doesn't move out of the way. My hand aims at the target and rolls. My hand aims at the target, rolls one way or another, but notice it rolls because I can release that power fully. All right, hopefully that helps. That's it.